up there, I think the Eagles will be very hyper focused and settle in. I can't see the New York Giants sweeping the series with a win at Lincoln Financial Field. I think it's going to be a very difficult afternoon for the Giants.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Zander Krause. That's my co-host, Johnny Mack, John McMullen, inching closer to the Week 8 rematch of the Eagles versus the New York Football Giants. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Wednesday morning, brother?
Doing well. Turn the page day. New York Giants, round 2, Wednesday. Big day. Long day.
What's your early feeling on that game?
Yeah, I don't think the Giants are very good, similar to the first game, and I was wrong about that one. But I do think that because of how they played up there, I think the Eagles will be very hyper focused and settle in. I can't see the New York Giants sweeping the series with a win at Lincoln Financial Field. I think it's going to be a very difficult afternoon for the Giants.
Yeah, I'm kind of have that same feeling right now. So we get the Kelly Greens coming out. Not that you care about that, but I'm sure all the people care about that. And I think the Eagles.
I do know what they're wearing for once. A lot of people ask me. That's the only time I know what they're wearing.
Right.
Kelly Green Week, because there's so much emphasis on it. They put up a different backdrop. The game notes are Kelly Green. They make a big deal out of it.
Profile picture on all their Instagram, their social medias. Yeah, they go.
All right. So if someone asked me after the game what they were wearing, I actually know during the, like, if you ask me 10 minutes after a normal, like if you ask me right now what they wore in Minnesota, I couldn't tell you. And I watched the game 3 times. I couldn't tell you.
You know it's white. I mean,
well, I know it because they're on the road.
I get what you're saying, though. It doesn't stick out. It's not the number one thing that matters, obviously.
Yeah.
But they are wearing Kelly Green this week. Eagles-Giants rematch. Jackson Dart coming off. He was on a high when he beat the Eagles, and then they had a fourth quarter collapse. That was pretty bad last week versus the Broncos. So we'll see how they manage. We'll have Mike Gill and Brandon Lee Gouton on the show today. So looking forward to talking to those guys on the show. That should be pretty good. John, what's going on in Eagle Land? Yesterday you spoke with the 2 coordinators. It's always good to hear from those guys. Brandon Graham has obviously officially returned, which we talked about yesterday. And A.J. Brown keeps stirring the pot a little bit. I don't know what you make of it, but we'll talk a little bit about that. Let's start with the coordinators, Johnny Mack. What did you see yesterday, Vic? We'll start with Vic. What stuck out from Vic's presser yesterday?
What the typical Vic, very honest. I love the fact I wrote about this yesterday. One, because he validates I love when he validates my points. And he was talking about the pick 6 and Jalen Carter, and basically, he got asked about Jalen's Hunt part of that, which is, a big play for him, confidence building play as a defensive end, outside linebacker. You got to catch the football, which isn't always the easiest thing to do for those guys. So big part of that. But Vic went directly to, well, who made the play? Who made the play? And I think it impacted the game far greatly than that, because I think he really impacted Carson Wentz, who was just awful after that play, with a massive hit. That was a Jalen Carter play. And that's where Vic directly went. Even though he's asked about Jalix and the impact of the pick 6. And I get that's where everyone's focus goes, but that's a perfect example of, look, that's a Jalen Carter play. You got to realize
pressure
that.
Play too, John. You talk about pressure all the time, man. That's a pressure on the quarterback, forcing a bad decision, forcing them to, speed up the clock, and the Eagles end up with a touchdown because of it.
So let me read. The question is, here's the question. On the Jalix Hunt pick 6, it looked like Carson Wentz stared down Justin Jefferson. Makuba was on him. Was that a man look? So it was talking about, what kind of look it was. And then it was designed to have Jalix drop in that situation to get a favorable matchup there. And Vic just said, yeah, the whole key to the play was Jalen Carter. He beat the center quickly, got in the quarterback space, hit him just like we teach him to hit him, and he caused the interception. And then he did say Jalen's made a great catch. So, from that point, I said, well, let me further on this and try to prop up Jalix a little bit, because it was a nice play by Jalix. He has been not what people expected, but still a developing player. And so I brought up his history as a safety at Cornell, and is he a more natural sort of flat defender that Bix likes. And Bix just said, "You would think so, but not really." I mean, he is just unbelievably blunt and honest. So for people that listen to the show, I have tremendous respect for Big Fangio. But so two things that stood out for me, because look, I don't know how people don't see this stuff. Like how you look at that play and don't realize it's not a Jalen Carter play. I think a lot of fans do. I think a lot of media people do, but I think a lot don't. I really think a lot don't. And that's football, and sort of nestled into um, the ultimate team game that Nick Sirianni always talks about. Like, one guy made the play, that's in the box score, pick six, but Jalen Carter
Right.
impact created that. And just like in the when they beat the Rams in the playoffs last year, it's like Jalen Carter, no sacks, just pressures, wins the game with 2 rushes late in that game. Um, so I love when Vic points that kind of stuff out, and that should have been obvious to people. I mean, that should have been really obvious to people, and too many, it wasn't. Shocking to me.
He also spoke about Brandon Graham, Johnny Mac. Didn't know what to make exactly of what he said about Brandon Graham. Kind of was a typical Vic answer of, let's see where he is. What did you make of that, and how much impact do you think Brandon Graham has here in the next couple of weeks?
Well, he's got a 2-week exemption, number one. So I truly think they're going to look and see where he is this week from a conditioning perspective. Wednesday starts today, Thursday, Friday. They have 3 practices, and if he looks good, they'll activate him. He's not on the 53 because they have that exemption. And it's just it's funny because the NFL screws up on its own wording. It's listed as a 2-game suspension, 2-game exemption. Um, it's really a 2-week because the Eagles have the bye week, so they don't get till after Green Bay. They have to do it by November 3rd to put them on the 53. So it's really a 2-week exemption because they have the bye week in between those 2 games. But anyway, that's just bookkeeping. So I really think they're going to look at the conditioning. Can he play? And if he can, they'll activate him and give him 10, 15 snaps. But I think, for a larger role to have the eye on Green Bay after the bye week, it's pretty clear. And that's fine. I mean, people should expect a little bit of a ramp up period. After missing, he didn't have a spring, a summer, was retired. Now, they've been talking back and forth since early in the season. So, Brandon has quietly been trying to get ready, but you can't, you can't be in football condition just working out on your own. So, and that's what Big kind of said. And that's what he always says about practice is important, even though people doesn't necessarily think it is. So, he wants to see where he is, but I did push him on the retention part because he mentioned retention. We'll see what kind of retention he has. And I asked him if his experience with Brandon last year gives him confidence that that's going to be okay. And he said, yeah, it does, obviously. Yeah. So from that part, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Good stuff there. John, what do you think of Patullo? I know maybe this is just in my head, but I'm reading Honest NFL yesterday, who's putting out these great tweets about the advantage that Shane Steichen has given to the Indianapolis Colts coaching staff and how he's prepared Daniel Jones, and he's giving him options, pre-snap, post-snap, what to do with the football, and why he's having such a good year as a football coach, not even specifically on the field. I listen to Kevin Patullo, John. I don't hear any of that. I don't get confidence from it. He doesn't inspire confidence in me, and I'm not the end all be all. I'm just telling you how I feel personally. What do you think of Kevin Patullo and what he had to say yesterday?
Well, yeah, that part I don't understand, to be frank, because you saw Shane here. Did he inspire confidence on the podium? Because if you're comparing
No, I'm
those
not
two,
talking about at the podium. I'm talking about
well,
the way he
well,
calls the game.
I'm talking. You said when you listen to him, I'm like he's way more engaging than Shane. Now, to your point about on field, yeah, that's fine. I mean, that's fine. But Shane didn't say anything on the podium. I mean, anything. If you're going to grade the coordinators on the podium, he's last. He's behind Kellen Moore, who said nothing. I mean, Shane, and I love the dude, and he was great off the podium. And I think he's a great coach, and he's doing a great job in Indianapolis. But I also think Daniel Jones didn't get enough credit. And Saquon's talked about Saquon's very close to Daniel Jones, and he would swear by Daniel Jones and say that if you give him an offensive line and you give him pieces, he's going to be a really good quarterback. And I'm not saying Saquon's right, but or was right at the time, although he's proven to be right. But the point is, Shane has been out there, and Shane has not looked as good when his quarterback situation wasn't as good, like every other coach. I'm not picking on him, but I do think you have to give some credit to the guy on the field doing it. And I think he's done a wonderful job, to the point I think they've both done a wonderful job, but and I have an MVP vote, and if I had to vote today, I'd vote for Daniel Jones. Which I think is a testament to both of them. But you know me, I'm gonna say the same thing when it comes to coaching. He's the same coach. Shane's the same coach that he was last year as he is this year. He's got a better quarterback. He can't do anything with Anthony Richardson. Couldn't.
Yeah, but are you trying to tell me that Kevin Patullo doesn't have good players?
No, he's got great players. I'm saying that you brought up Shane. I'm saying, look, I think he's doing a wonderful job. He was probably doing a wonderful job with Anthony Richardson, but you'll never know it. Is what I'm trying to say. And Daniel is now in a situation where you saw him in New York, where he didn't have the talent around him. Now you talk about Kevin, just like you talk about Kellen and Brian and Shane, has a lot of talent. So their expectations are higher, but they have their own individual sort of hurdles to overcome. We often talk about, people think about adversity versus handling success. It might be a nice problem to have, but I always say problem is still in that phrase.
Yeah, right.
They haven't been able to run the football, which is curious. And I can't explain it, because they've always been ready to, they've always been able to run the football in this era. And all of a sudden they can't, which is bizarre to me. To the point, and I'm sure it's bizarre to them, because I'm sure they're trying. I know they're trying. That was the whole mini buy, try to get the running game on track, and haven't been able to do it. And they're coming off a phenomenal passing game, which again needs to be more consistent. And we'll see if that is consistent moving forward. It can't be as good as it was there, so you have to recalibrate. You're not going to have perfect passer ratings every week. So it's interesting. They're coming off a high point where they proved a lot of things in the passing game. But I think the major concern remains getting that running game going. And if anybody knew the answer, the Eagles would probably invite you into the NovaCare complex to fix it.
Yeah, no doubt.
But I did hear, I don't know if it was Baldy, it might have been Tucker, one of the old offensive linemen, might have been Swartz, said they haven't seen anybody load the box like they are for Saquon. And I covered Adrian Peterson with a bad quarterback. I've seen loaded boxes. And Saquon will tell you, he's seen these kinds of loaded boxes all the time throughout his career. They did it last year. Why they can't do it this year is perplexing. And we've talked about all the issues. Banged up offensive line. Is he banged up? All the touches, yada, yada, yada. A lot of things. The tight ends aren't blocking well. A lot of things factor into it, but it is strange. It is strange.
Yeah, we had Keith Byers on yesterday who spoke about it. He said he sees offensive line run blocking for sure, but we'll see what ends up happening with it. John, let's talk about AJ Brown. What'd you make of it? The post. I think he's trolling at this point, John, but
I think he's trolling.
It's still not the best thing in the world.
No, he shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I think he knows. I think he does. He's got. Sorry, AJ, for listening, but he's got an addiction to social media. I mean, because
Does he need to get attention? Like I love AJ Brown. Like I try not to rip on him because I like the player. I think he's a deep dude. I try and understand when he speaks, where he's coming from, and I've never had an issue. But at some point, you're just like, all right, like.
Well, it's not helping.
Making shit. Like, you know what I mean? I don't understand that part of it.
It's not helping the situation. That's the bottom line.
And it's a little unbecoming of a captain.
It's just not helping. So, and I think he does this stuff, and then he reverts back to course and says, "Yeah, I shouldn't have done that." Well, don't do it.
Yeah, I get that.
Addictions are addictions. It's not easy to stop them. Not easy to stop habits. Bottom line is, it's not helping. So stop it. And part of it, I think, is just trolling. And ultimately, it was using me, but not using me. That's what he said.
Yeah, who even knows what that means?
No. It doesn't help. Is the point.
Yeah.
So to me, if it doesn't help, and he'll probably know it by the end of the day that it didn't help, just go in a different direction. I don't know. But I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I don't think it helps either.
Yeah, well, we'll see what ends up happening with it. I'm sure they're going to ask AJ Brown about it. I'm done seeing the social media posts, but I don't know. If it doesn't matter and he can get 120 yards and 2 touchdowns like he did this week, shit, make all the social media posts you want. I guess I don't really care at the end of the day. I think the good news is I don't think Jalen Hurts cares. I think Jalen is pretty stoic about that stuff. So maybe Jalen is the quarterback to be able to manage that better.